Greetings, welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. I'm your host, Christopher Rice, and our guest today is Dr. Laila Ayoubi. Dr. Ayoubi was born in Afghanistan, daughter of the commanding general of the Afghan Royal Air Force. She fled to Pakistan after the Soviet invasion in 1979 and later immigrated to the United States. She served on the diplomatic staff at the Afghan Embassy in Pakistan from 2003 through 2006, participating in Afghanistan's reconstruction program. Dr. Ayoubi lectures about women's rights and equality, focusing on Afghanistan. Recently, she published the novel Niki's Honor, about the practice of honor killings. Today, Dr. Ayoubi will draw from her personal experiences and work in Afghanistan to discuss her novel and the climate of female education and empowerment in Afghan communities. Dr. Ayoubi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. To start out, what was your inspiration for Niki's Honor?
I'd like to create an awareness about unequal right of women and girls, because it has been for almost the history, women are treated very bad, and violence against girls and women still continues. And through my book and my lectures, I'd like to give them a voice. For example, during my time, I was very fortunate because I grew up in the time before Russian invasion in Afghanistan. We had universities, we had doctors, engineers, ambassadors, even ministers as women. In the house, my father treated his sons and daughters the same. We had the opportunity to go to school and to universities. And I'd like this right, all the women and girls have it.
Laila, in your book, we see some of the consequences of silence among women. What steps are necessary such that women can speak up and feel empowered in Afghan communities?
The word silence is kind of very classic, because it's not only happening in Afghanistan that women and girls keep silence, it's happened all around the world. In some places, because of keep the honor intact, some places they don't want to hurt the parents or the people they love them. That's the reason they keep themselves silent. But through writing, through education and enlightening people, it's very important I like to be their voice. Yes.
Well, thank you for the excellent segue to our next question. How much progress would you say Afghanistan has made in women's education since the fall of the Taliban government in 2001? What role does community-based education play, and what can the international community do to break barriers to education? The good example I can give you, it's about my research on homeschools, because in general, if I talk, it's a broad subject. When I was working at the Embassy of Islamabad in Pakistan, I was in charge of students' affairs. That was a very good opportunity for me also to write my own theses and go to camps and visit Afghan refugees' schools. And concentration was on home schools. In big cities in Pakistan, Afghan women who during the time of civil war, they were not able to go to formal school because schools were closed. What they did, they had underground classrooms. And those people, when they moved to Islamabad, of course, they created small, kind of close to formal schools. But in far away, like in Peshawar, in Quetta, they had non-formal education, but international organizations, NGOs in some Afghan communities, they were helping them.
And that was wonderful. And through my interviews and observations, I saw the talent and also the eagerness of students and the teacher. And I was surprised and I was impressed by teachers' knowledge of the topics and working with the students. And also, it was not an easy task because in those refugee camps, people came from different parts of Afghanistan. In Afghanistan also is a mosaic of different nationalities. We have Afghan, Pashtun, Uzbek, Hazara, and Tajiks. And, but having all of them under the same roof and teach them in a very good environment was excellent. In the other side, those Afghan communities, most of them were patriarchal. And like they didn't know what was going on inside the schools, these home schools, because men were not allowed to go, and also they couldn't take photograph or video. Then it was on the girls' hands to demonstrate their skill of reading, writing, counting, and also some home style renovation or these things for their environment was very important. Yes.
So would you say Afghanistan has made some significant progress since 2001?
Exactly. Women began to progress, even they started forge some careers for themselves. And I have a statistic, according to the World Bank report, 36% of girls are now enrolled at schools. And about more than a quarter of parliament and government employees, they are attending work.
Okay.
Yes, it's and also we have police and armies for women, and all international organizations are helping. And right now we have, again, doctors, engineers, even ambassadors or ministers and soldiers, policewomen in Afghanistan's government.
Okay. But still much work to be done, though, right?
Exactly. Even like about the education, schools for girls are open, universities are open, but they don't complete it because it's still the culture of marrying faster. And also when I was in Afghanistan, getting to school was very hard because there was no road, there was no transportation, regular transportation. And girls supposed to walk far away to reach the university. And sometimes they give up and they just stop coming.
Well, Laila, you mentioned refugees from Afghanistan, particularly in Pakistan. Afghanistan was the largest refugee-producing country in the world until the recent Syrian civil war. From your time in Pakistan and your research, can you talk about the educational difficulties female refugees from Afghanistan face there?
Of course. And the most important things, for those girls who graduated from university, they were not able to bring their document from Kabul universities or other universities inside Afghanistan. Getting to Pakistan or other countries' universities, that was the most difficult task that young girls became, and they gave up. But they didn't give up. I'm impressed by their courage because they started to teach again. They started those, I'm graduated from Malalai High School. The teachers, principals fled Afghanistan. They rented a small house and they created like Malalai High School.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, they had about 50 to 80 students. But they were, compared to homeschool, more closer to formal schools because they had relatives in Europe or America. They would help them. And people who were living in Islamabad or bigger cities, they were capable economically to help them.
Well, Laila, thank you so much for coming in to speak with us today. It's been
You're
a
very
pleasure.
welcome. Thank you. Oh, and about one thing else about Niki's Honor. Niki's Honor is about the story of a young Pashtun girl who entangled in these tragedies of honor killing, but for the honor and not hurt her family, she just kept quiet until somebody from the family learned about it. Yes. And my editor, Mark Froelich, who's the retired judge and also an actor whose name is Kenny Santiago, they're writing a play screen. And they're inviting people an individual to support or sponsor to make a movie of this horrible story.
Wow. Well, Laila, I hope your book and the implications from it continue to inspire young women around the world to speak up.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. That's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, please let us know at CIBER, that's CIBER, cyber, @indiana.edu.